Hi, today I wanted to show you the axolotls. I don't know if any of you are worried about what was happening to the axolotls over the lockdown. No need to worry. My daughter and I moved the axolotls and the tank and the filter, and we moved most of the water as well so that they weren't stressed by a change in water, and we brought them all home. So the axolotls have been living in my house in their tank as usual, and they are very, very well. They're coming on really well. Don't know if you remember when we got them, they were quite nervous creatures, weren't they? They're not nervous at all now. Their character's really coming out. I also don't know if you remember, I used to chop the worms really quite small for them, didn't I? I used to chop the worms up. I didn't like doing it, but it was the only way they could eat them at the time. It was the only way they could manage those little tiny bits of worm. Well, hopefully I'll show you in a minute. They are just wolfing down whole worms now. They are really doing very well. So I'm going to feed them in a minute and show you feeding them. I've got my worms here. They are trying to escape. So they will be fed to the axolotls in a moment. And I have made myself a little wormery. Some of you may have seen this in the classroom. It's coming on really well. I'll show you in a minute. This is just a popcorn tub that the science department was given. I've put holes in the top so the worms could breed. Whenever I've bought a box of worms from Wrigley's, I've put the soil that they're in here, because obviously I don't want to use soil out of the garden, because that could have chemicals in, that could have insecticides, it could have weed killer in, so I don't want to use anything out of the garden. Equally, axolotls shouldn't be fed worms that you've dug up out of the garden. Even if you don't use any chemicals in your garden, worms don't just stay in one garden, so the worms could have come across from a neighbour who does use chemicals, does use insecticides, does use weed killers. And the lady I got the axolotls from, the rescue, she said she's seen quite a lot of axolotls die horrible deaths because people have given them worms from their garden that had chemicals in. So I've got my wormery set up here. The worms are all from Wrigley's, Dendrobina worms. The soil is all the soil that they've come from Wrigley's. Obviously, hopefully they're going to breed and I'm going to have lots more worms so that I don't have to buy quite so many, because they are each eating, I give each one about 3 worms each per day. So we get through quite a few worms, and I think they'd probably eat more if I gave them more, but I think 3 each every day is quite enough. Obviously when they're back in school they won't get fed over the weekend because I can't get into school over the weekend, but I usually give them a good old feed Friday evening before I go home. So they're lucky at the minute, they're at home with me. I've really enjoyed having them at home. So now I'm going to show you the wormery, and then we will go and see the axolotls and feed them. Okay, right, so here are the worms I'm going to feed them today. They're trying to escape out of the pot. And here is the inside of the wormery. I've got potato peelings in there for them to eat. I've got eggshells in there for them to eat and break down, and that will make sure they get some calcium. Let's see if we can see some of the worms, see if I can shake it up. Yeah, we've got lots of lovely, fat, juicy, healthy worms in there for our axolotls. I'll just give it a bit of a rake through. You can see there they all are. So the wormery is going really well. We've got lots of juicy worms for our axolotls to eat. And so let's go and see the axolotls and let's go and feed them. Right, so here we are. Here is Flint coming looking for his worms. And let's have a little look across here. Here's Quartz. He's going, where's my worms? They're late this morning. I would like my worms. So there's their tank. You know their tank, you've seen it before. It's at my house just as it was. There's the 2 axolotls in it. They're very happy. The tank's very clean. I've tested the water yesterday. The water parameters are perfect for them. Nice and clean. The filter is running really well, and everything is lovely. And you can see how healthy they are. Lovely pink gills there on Flint, looking really good. So the fluffy things on the sides of their heads are gills, which they use to breathe oxygen underwater. They do have lungs as well. There's Flint, he says, where's my breakfast? I want my worms. They have got lungs as well, and that's why sometimes you see them go up to the surface of the water and take a gulp of air, because they like to do that. And I think these two guys are waiting for their worms, and I better give them some worms. Whoops. I just turned around and looked at the worm pot, and all the worms are trying to escape, so I will try and sort the worms out now and then feed them. I'm going to give Quartz a worm first. He's hiding his head, but you should... There he goes. He's got his worm. I'm really pleased they're at opposite ends of the tank because it avoids them having any arguments. So as you can see, he's having a great old game with that worm. If we come across and see Flinty now, Flint's going to get a worm. Oh, missed it, Flint. You got it? Good lad. He's got his worm. He's having a right old game with that worm, isn't he? So as you can see, they're eating so much better now. They're managing whole worms rather than just little pieces of worms, and they're really gulping them down. Brilliant.